All right. So this is the last major topic that we're going to be doing. It has two parts. It's statistics. So it has part one, which we're doing today, and the next lesson is part two, and then we're finished. Today is pretty straightforward. So let's look at the do now for today. So if the mean of four test scores is 88.5, and you know three of the scores are 100, 90, and 80, what is the fourth test score? Okay. So what we have to remember for the mean. So mean means, right, that you're going to take all the numbers that you have, you're going to add them up, and then you're going to divide by the number of numbers, right? So how many numbers there are, that goes on the bottom, and that gives you the mean. Mean, okay? The symbol for mean is X with the line over it, and we're going to learn another one, which is a U, okay? So let's go ahead and do what we know. So it says they're giving us three of them out of the four. So they're giving us 100, they're giving us 90, they're giving us 80. But there are four of them, and we don't know what the fourth one is. So let's just call that X for now. And how many test scores do we have altogether, right? We have four test scores, right? Three of which we know, one which we don't. So there are four altogether. And they're telling us that the mean is 88.5. So this is important. So the mean is 88.5. So instead of the word mean, or instead of our X with a bar over it, we can put 88.5. Okay. So now how do we solve this? We just do a little bit of calculation, some algebra one. So what I'm going to do is take my calculator and take these three numbers that were given and add them together. So 100 plus 90 plus 80, and that's going to give us 270. So we have 270 plus X divided by 4 gives me 88.5. All right. If there's no number on the bottom, there's an imaginary 1. And what this reminds me of is when I have two fractions with the equal sign in between, I can cross multiply them. So this times this. So now I take my calculator and I'm going to do 88.5 times 4, and that gives me 354. So 354 is equal to, and this is a 1, so 1 times anything is itself, so I have 270 plus X, okay? So now I just have to take my 354, subtract 270 from it, right? Because I have to move that 270 over, and I get that my X, which is the fourth score, which is the one that I'm looking for, is 84. So that is the fourth test score, and you can use your calculator to verify that that's right, right? And how do you do that? Take 84, plug it back in, add these numbers that are given, divide it by 4, and see if you get 88.5, and you will. All right, good. What's the difference between a survey, an observational study, and an experiment? So that's what today's lesson is. So you might think of a survey, right? You've been given surveys a lot in school. There's a New York City Department of Education that does a survey. Your parents or guardians have to do a survey. So we know what a survey is, right? Like questions that we're going to fill out. An observational study, the word observation is there. That means that you're looking, right? So if somebody walks into our classroom and says, how many students do we have in our classroom and what is it that they're doing during the course of the period? That's an observational study. They're just observing, okay? You're not taking any students, moving them away from each other or splitting into two groups or three groups. That's what an experiment is, right? An experiment is you take a control group, an experimental group, and then with the control group, you do something to them and see how they compare to the, no, with the experimental group, you do something to them and see how they compare to the control group, okay? So I just verbalized what the differences are. If you look on the next page, it goes into a little bit more detail about what are the differences between them. The big thing about an experimental is that you have to split into two groups, separate the sample population into groups. That's the big thing about an experiment. About a survey, surveys are a form of observational study, right? But there, and it goes to like advantages and disadvantages. But surveys specifically question people, right? It collects information about a sample group to learn about the entire population. And an observational study, right, is something, the sample population being studied is measured or surveyed as it is does not influence the population is the big thing there. Okay. All right. So now the last one is, what is bias? How do you decrease bias in a study? I'm going to leave this up to you to go ahead and answer that about what is bias. I think we all have heard that word before. And how can you decrease bias in a study? So the more random the sample is when you're doing a study, the more random it is, the less bias there is. Okay, so the more random a study is, the less bias there is in the study. So you should definitely know that. And like I said, this goes into a little bit more detail about the differences between the three. All right, so that is our lesson for today. What I want you to do is you definitely work on your Delta Math assignment. But what I want you to do is I want you to do questions that I have on the board from here. So there's some level 1s, level 2s, level 3s. And I want you to go through and do some questions and then work on your exit ticket. Okay. That's the lesson for today. Thank you.